Carmela Wallace lives in a 17,000 square foot house on a private cul-de-sac in Burr Ridge, Illinois. $8.3 million, the most expensive property ever sold in that town. Her son was Jared Higgins. The world knew him as Juice WRLD, and he died at 21 without leaving a will. When he died, a court counted what he left behind. $3,278,000, a condo in Miami, a few bank accounts, and a watch and jewelry collection worth about $460,000. 2 years later, she sold 90% of his catalog in a deal reported at $115 million. So where did the other $112 million come from? She built it, all of it, after he was already dead, starting from a full-time office job in a working-class suburb south of Chicago. Carmela Wallace raised 2 sons in Homewood, Illinois, 20 miles south of the city, Brian, and 8 years later, Jared. She and their father separated in the early 2000s, and from that point, she raised both boys alone.
Being a single mom, I had to pray a lot. And Jared was a handful. I mean, he had a lot of personality, and it was a lot to him. But so I had to stay prayerful about direction.
She was strict about school, kept them in sports and after-school programs, and controlled what came into the house. He wasn't allowed to listen to much rap growing up, so he came up on rock instead. Blink-182, Fall Out Boy, Black Sabbath. Piano at 4, then guitar, drums, and trumpet. That's why his music never sounded like anybody else's. His mother's rules built the sound. When he started struggling in high school, she put him in counseling, and she's said since that those sessions gave him the words for what was happening inside him.
In high school, he had therapy because he had impulsive behavior, so I had him see a psychologist. So he was used to communicating and really getting in touch with his feelings.
He took that vocabulary straight into a recording booth. At Homewood Flossmoor, his teachers knew who he was before anybody else did. His chemistry teacher listened to his songs on headphones years before he had a fan base. He freestyled in the hallways between classes. What she didn't see was the pills. He was on prescription painkillers and lean while he was still living under her roof. He started uploading to SoundCloud in 2015 under the name Juice the Kid, singing and rapping at the same time over guitar, writing about anxiety and heartbreak and dying young. Kids who had never heard anybody put those feelings into words heard him do it, and they said it to each other. In 2017, Lil Bibby found him through those uploads and signed him to Grade A Productions out of Chicago. A year later, Grade A turned that into a joint venture with Interscope, reported at $3 million for a kid who had built everything he had on a free platform.
You end up signing the deal. It was a $3 million joint venture. Right. Juice got a nice check out of it.
Of course.
He was 19 when he signed it, and he signed his masters away to do it. That's standard. Almost every young artist does it because the label is the one putting up the money. It's also the reason a court would eventually count his entire estate at $3 million, while his songs were being played 30 billion times. Then it detonated. Lucid Dreams went to number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100 and eventually went diamond. 10 million units. Goodbye and Good Riddance went triple platinum. In March 2019, Death Race for Love debuted at number 1 on the Billboard 200. He won Best New Artist at the Billboard Music Awards, headlined his own tour, played Rolling Loud, sold out arenas, and made records with Future, with Ellie Goulding, with NBA YoungBoy. He was 20 years old, and behind all of it, he was recording 3 to 5 songs a night, every night, and putting them in a vault.
And I go in the studio, and Juice is in there rapping. But it wasn't no booth. So he got a mic in the studio just out in the open, but he had already made 11 songs, just standing right there making all these songs like.
By the end, there were hundreds of finished tracks in there that nobody outside the room had ever heard. In January 2019, Carmela quit her job to manage him full-time. She was 49 years old, learning the music business from the inside, taking calls from labels and lawyers and promoters because her son needed one person in the room who wasn't on somebody's payroll. That year took things from her that had nothing to do with the business. In June 2019, the boy's father died.
Everybody that's sending me condolences and shit, appreciate you, I love you, appreciate you.
6 months before his youngest son. By then, Jared's life had gotten faster than anybody around him could manage.
I'm like, so I tell him like, Juice, you be acting weird, bro. I don't like being around weird people, bro. Like, you be giving off these weird vibes, like,
He was in a different city every few days, recording in hotel rooms and on planes, and he wasn't hiding the drug use. That July, he tweeted that he was done with codeine and was going to quit. People close to him said he was trying. He was also being watched. On November 18th, customs agents pulled his private jet at LAX while he was boarding a flight to Australia. Drug-sniffing dogs went through the luggage, and the whole entourage got searched at the gate. Then they let him fly. Whatever they found or didn't find that day, he was on a federal radar from that point on. 3 weeks later, he got on a plane in Los Angeles to fly home to Chicago.
He was with us. We were going back to Chicago for his birthday.
It was a private Gulfstream with about a dozen people on board, including his girlfriend, Ali Lottie. According to reporting at the time, the pilot found out 2 of his bodyguards were carrying guns and called it in. So when the plane touched down at Midway around 1:30 in the morning on December 8th, 2019, a Homeland Security team working under an FBI task force was standing on the tarmac. They started going through the luggage right there. 70 pounds of marijuana, 6 bottles of what they suspected was liquid codeine, 2 9mm pistols, a .40 caliber, a high-capacity magazine, and armor-piercing rounds. Jared was standing there while they did it. Somebody in his group later told police he had swallowed several pills as the plane was landing, trying to hide them before the search. He started convulsing in front of the agents. He went down bleeding from the mouth. One of the federal agents on scene gave him 2 doses of Narcan, the drug you use when you think somebody is overdosing on opioids. He came back for a moment and couldn't say anything that made sense. Police asked Ali whether he had any medical conditions. She told them no, that he had a Percocet problem. An ambulance took him to Advocate Christ Medical Center in Oak Lawn. He was pronounced dead at 3:14 in the morning.
TMZ is reporting rapper Juice WRLD is dead after suffering a seizure at Chicago's Midway Airport.
He was 21 years old. He'd had his birthday 6 days earlier. Nobody has ever reported how his mother found out. She's never talked about that phone call publicly, and it's one of the few parts of this story she's kept for herself. What's on the record is that her son flew home to the city she lives in and died in a hospital 25 minutes from the house he grew up in. The Cook County Medical Examiner released the cause on January 22nd, 2020. Oxycodone and codeine toxicity, ruled accidental. They buried him on December 14th in Harvey, Illinois, in a private service. That same night, thousands of people who had never met him filled Millennium Park downtown.
Fans of Juice WRLD gathering at the Bean and other areas downtown this evening to remember the rapper who died at Midway Airport last weekend. His real name was Jared Higgins.
Interscope put out a statement calling him a gentle soul whose creativity knew no bounds. Ellie Goulding posted about him. Chance the Rapper wrote that millions of people around the world were hurting and didn't know what to do with it. Reporters went to Homewood Flossmoor and talked to the teachers who'd had him in class 2 years earlier, and his chemistry teacher told them she started crying the second she heard his name on the news. Carmela asked for privacy. She didn't get much of it. Within days, the calls started coming in from labels and lawyers and publishers, all of them needing decisions that only one person could make. Because Jared died without a will, no wife, no children, and his father was already gone, everything he owned and everything he was owed went to his mother. In March 2020, she filed to be made representative of his estate, and that's the filing that produced the $3 million number.
What I love about you as far as leading the Juice WRLD estate is that it's important for you to keep that going, making sure that there are albums that still come out and, keep his music and his message continuing.
Because that's what he loved.
Then came the part nobody could have planned for. He'd been dead less than a week, and his music was being played more than it had ever been played while he was alive. That's what happens when a young artist dies. People go looking for the songs, and they don't stop. Except with him, it never came back down. In the 12 months after he died, his estate reportedly earned around $15 million from royalties and merchandise alone, in 1 year, from a man who was already buried. And the first thing Carmela did with that platform had nothing to do with money. In the spring of 2020, a few months after burying her son, she launched a foundation called Live Free 999.
Well, thank you. So I started Live Free 999 to normalize the conversation around mental health and substance dependency
letting people know it's okay not to be okay.
She started it because messages were coming in from all over the world from young people saying his songs had gotten them through the worst stretch of their lives. Live Free 999 partners with Crisis Text Line, so kids who would never pick up a phone and call a hotline can text instead. In 2024 alone, the foundation gave $100,000 to 9 different mental health organizations, and more than 2,400 people reached out through that text line. It also ran a campaign called His Name Was Jared, built around the idea that the person behind the songs was somebody's child before he was anybody's artist. She also took a seat on the board of the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, and she speaks at high schools and events around the country about addiction and what it looks like from inside a family. Meanwhile, the catalog kept climbing. By early 2023, Carmela was sitting on a body of work that had passed 30 billion streams on Spotify alone, not counting Apple Music, not counting YouTube. Around 30 million people were listening every month, and they still are, which is a number most living artists can't hold while touring and promoting full-time. 3 of her son's albums are on Spotify's list of the 50 most streamed hip-hop albums in the platform's history. Goodbye and Good Riddance at number 4, Legends Never Die at 10, Death Race for Love at 13. In 2021, the RIAA certified 50 of his songs gold or platinum in a single announcement, and she's the one those plaques get sent to. So a woman who had left an office job 3 years earlier was now responsible for one of the most valuable pieces of intellectual property in American music, and she had no training for any of it. And the audience keeps growing. Kids who were 10 years old when he died are teenagers now, finding those songs for the first time and hearing them the way the first wave did. In early 2022, she made the deal that put a number on this entire story. Opus Music Group, a rights company backed by the investment firm Elliott Management, bought 90% of Jared's master recording income and 90% of his publishing.
Juice WRLD's estate just sold off his music catalog. According to Billboard, Juice WRLD's music was sold off in a deal that's reportedly worth 9 figures, okay?
Everything he'd released, plus every one of those hundreds of unreleased songs in the vault. He owned a piece of both, which almost no artist his age does, and she sold most of both while keeping a slice of each. Neither side made the price public. Billboard reported it as a 9-figure deal, and a later industry estimate put the number at $115 million. At the time she signed it, his rights were generating at least $9 million a year on their own. 2 years later, Opus turned around and put its whole portfolio up for sale, asking north of $200 million. Litmus Music bought it in September 2024. Her son's catalog has been sold twice now by men who never met him. She's the only one in any of those rooms who did. Every song that comes out with Juice WRLD's name on it goes through Carmela first.
My background is quality management.
So you're quality managing once you hear the final product.
Yes.
Got it.
The first one came 7 months after she buried him. Legends Never Die landed in July 2020 and debuted at #1 on the Billboard 200 with the biggest streaming week any album had that year. A dead 21-year-old outsold everybody alive. Fighting Demons followed in December 2021. The Party Never Ends came in November 2024. Somebody has to pull tracks out of a vault of hundreds of unfinished songs and decide which ones the world hears, in what order, finished by which producers, with which features attached. Her son isn't there to ask, and millions of people who feel like they knew him argue about every call she makes.
When you consider that a lot of the music that's been coming out of the vault as of late has not really been his best stuff.
She approves the merchandise. She signs off on licensing when a film or a game wants one of his records. She works with Interscope and Grade A, the 2 labels he signed to at 17 and 18. And she's the one on the other end of those calls now. In December 2021, HBO released a documentary called Into the Abyss, built out of archival footage of Jared's life and the addiction that killed him. That film needed her. She decided how much of her son's worst days a global audience was going to see. Then, in October 2024, she opened a brewery.
Today, at the grand opening of Homewood Brewery Company, the late rapper Juice WRLD was honored. His mother, Carmela Wallace, kicked off that event with a ribbon cutting with Homewood's mayor wielding the big scissors.
Homewood Brewing Company sits on Dixie Highway in the town where she raised both her sons. The village sold her the land for $1. Her oldest son, Brian, runs the brewing side, which makes it the first thing this family has built together since Jared died. There's a beer on the menu called Wishing Well, named after one of his songs, and 10% of what it makes goes straight to the foundation. None of that is what people picture when they hear a rapper's mother came into money. What they picture is the house. In March 2022, a house came on the market on Lee Court in Burr Ridge, Illinois. Burr Ridge sits about 25 miles west of Homewood, and it's a different world. Quiet, gated, no traffic, the kind of suburb where executives and retired athletes live specifically so nobody looks at them. The house had been built in 2016, and it was the biggest thing in the village. 17,100 square feet, 6 bedrooms, 6.5 bathrooms, hand-carved marble fireplaces, crystal chandeliers, a saltwater aquarium, a waterfall in the yard, a chef's kitchen built for entertaining a crowd. It sits at the end of a private cul-de-sac on an acre of its own, which means no street traffic and nobody walking past. Carmela paid $6.9 million for it. Then she bought the empty 2 acres next door for another $1.4 million, so nobody would ever build beside her. The previous record for a home sale in that town was $2.1 million, set back in 2007. She beat it by more than $6 million. The tax bill on the house alone runs about $75,000 a year. Now put that next to where she came from. A few weeks before her son died, Carmela sold her house in Homewood. She got $250,000 for it. That's the distance. A $250,000 house in a working-class suburb to an $8.3 million compound in the wealthiest pocket of the Chicago metro in a little over 2 years. She kept it for 4. In January 2026, the Burr Ridge house went on the market. She bought the most expensive property in the history of that town, the thing every headline about this family points at, and 4 years later, she decided she didn't want it. Meanwhile, the brewery on Dixie Highway is still open, in the town where she raised both her boys, on land that cost her $1.
I decided to build a brew pub restaurant in Homewood because that was a special place for Jared and I. So in order to honor him, I started this project that just really grew into a work of love.
Most people who come into money like that hire a team and disappear. They put the assets in a trust, let somebody else answer the phone, and never think about a licensing agreement again. She went the other way, and then she went back home. The $112 million difference between what a court counted and what his catalog sold for didn't come from anything Jared left behind. He left a condo, some accounts, a watch collection, and a vault full of unfinished songs nobody had heard. Everything on top of that, his mother built. She quit her job to work for him, and she's still working for him 7 years after he died. The only thing that's changed is that now he can't tell her whether she's getting it right. So what do you think? Did Carmela Wallace inherit her son's empire, or did she build the version of it that exists today? Drop it in the comments. Check out our other videos and click on the boxes for more content. Till next time, peace.